Well, welcome everybody to the second part of our little topic on the stigma of addiction. And last week we talked about Hollywood movies. And researchers, believe it or not, they actually study stuff like this. They have concluded that the portrait of addiction and what is required for recovery is pretty much stereotypical in Hollywood movies. And typically it's all the whole part of the addict is the con artist, the liar, the cheat. And it's not their fault, by the way, because they have this disease, right? And so Sandra Bullock in 28 Days is not a horrible person. She's just trapped by alcoholism. And Michael Keaton, again, he's not the evil person, so all that lying and manipulating is explainable by the addiction. Anyway, part of this this whole idea of the stigma and what it takes to recover. Well, you know, they have to get this structure and follow rules and all this other sort of thing, because you can't trust them to figure this out, right? I mean, you actually have to, you know, force them to show up at a group at a certain time and force them to do this and, you know, get this healthy structure in their lives and all that. Anyway, this week, and again, if you were a client at the Sunshine Coast Health Center, I mean, we talked a bit about this towards the end of your stay, and that is the public perception of addiction, of course, is the stigma. And what is life going to be like when you get out in the real world and people know that you're in recovery? And this creates any number of problems. There was a treatment center that opened up down the road. And it's actually fairly easy to predict what would happen. Of course, the neighbors got all up in arms and made the argument, of course, property values would go down. You can't have this place, you know, near anything because, oh my God, there's a bunch of addicts in there. They're going to, you know, who knows what they're going to get up to, right? Going to sneak out at night and start presumably robbing everybody or something. I'm not sure what the official line is. And so that was pretty typical, and again, I mean, this kind of thing is routine in the field. Oh, and by the way, all those things about property values going down and everything, they're all nonsense. Researchers have studied those too and discovered that they're actually not, they're not valid arguments. Anyway, the public opinion is very powerful, right? And may be reinforced by Hollywood movies, but somehow being reinforced by the story that people keep telling in society that there's something defective about an addict. And some of the more recent research has pointed out that people, like in Canada and the United States, they don't like it when they see an individual who appears to not be in control of himself or herself, right? This really bothers them a great deal. And the addict is held up as this person. And then the story, of course, goes on that if they have like half a beer, that's it, oh, out of control, like I'm doomed, right? So not being in control. And then other research comes up, which we'll talk about next week, about you know, how impulsive they are and they don't think about things and all this sort of thing. But one of the key points here about this stigma, not only is it in all the Hollywood movies, but just in the general population, there's this huge stigma. And I'm just trying to remember of even reading a newspaper article that would not have the stigma, even if it's like patronizing. So, oh, the poor little drug addict, they need help, you know, that kind of thing, right? Anyway, that's this week's little spiel on the stigma, and we'll be back next week, and we'll start taking a look at some of the research conclusions and how they actually fit in with the stigma.